agree with the data or not, you're going to want to say you've seen this when people ask. One of two things, please. First of all, details matter. And second of all, don't shoot the messenger. Just give a like.
They told him to stay silent. And why? Because it didn't fit the narrative.
I don't like the police very much. And the only thing I know how to do is I'm one of the world's biggest data nerds. So I said, this is going to be the easiest paper I ever write.
I think it was good that he did it. And all the cop haters out there, they want to deny the truth because it don't fit their narrative.
So I was biased against the police. I'm not, that's obvious. I went and I don't think I've received a better education since my grandmother taught me to read. Through these experiences, long story short, I collected a lot of data, and those experiences helped me understand what types of data to collect. Yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result, but we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings.
You should be over the moon to hear that there is research that dispels that myth and says, you know what, maybe it's not true.
Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure.
Mind blowing. You should be elated to hear that there is evidence to suggest that.
They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose.
This is Roland Fryer on the Free Press. Props to them. Free Press, you can go follow them on YouTube. And Roland Fryer, a Harvard professor who is very into data. So, ladies and gentlemen, grab a drink. We're going to watch this together. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.
When you came on my radar, it was for a paper that you wrote in 2016. Here was the title of it: An Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force. Maybe there's been a more controversial paper since then. I would argue it's probably the most controversial of your career so far. Tell us about that study, and you've called the results the most surprising of your career. Why is that?
Could we change the language of controversy? I mean, do you mean interesting? People are always like, you're so controversial. I don't want to be, right? Like, I'm just showing you the data. The data are telling you a weird story. That's not my fault. I'd like some nice popular data. It just didn't work out that way. Look, I saw what was going on with Michael Brown and some of the early viral videos of police violence. I wanted to do something, but protesting is just not my jam. I'm not saying that people shouldn't protest, go for it, but it seemed hot outside. I just didn't want to do it. And so I thought, I want to do something. And the only thing I know how to do is I'm one of the world's biggest data nerds. So I said, this is going to be the easiest paper I ever write. I'm going to go get some data. I'm going to go show that the police are biased. Finally, people are going to like me. And my grandmother's going to go, you showed that the police don't like black people. Really? What are you doing up there? Right? Like, this was, I had it all laid out. And then I had dinner with a colleague of mine, and I was telling him about my plan. And he says, you know, Roland, when you work on schools and other stuff like that, you really just are in the schools. And so it's weird for me, strange that you would just download police data and not understand more about the police. He says, I wonder what the police are maximizing. A very econ kind of thing to ask. I wonder what the police are maximizing. And it dawned on me in that moment, I didn't know, nor did I think I cared. So I said, okay, fine. I didn't give him credit in the moment, but I left and said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go figure out what police maximize. So I set up ride-alongs in Camden, Philadelphia, Houston, some places in Massachusetts to ride along with the police. Now, back to 1991. I don't like the police very much. I don't.
What had been your experience with the police?
I had been roughed up by the police. I've had guns pulled on me. Mind you, they pulled me over, and I decided it would be a good idea to get out of the car and walk away. The details are important, probably. But in any event, I didn't like their customer service. And so I just didn't like police. They came, they took half my family away. Granted, they were selling a lot of drugs, but again, not the greatest customer service. So I was biased against the police. I'm not, that's obvious. I went, and I don't think I've received a better education since my grandmother taught me to read. It's a hard job. And I know that sounds obvious sitting on a stage. It's a really hard job. I am a terrible police officer. After 4 hours, everyone looked like a criminal to me. I don't know if I was hangry. I don't know what it was, but I'm telling you, I am serious. They were like, you could never be a cop. Because I was like, hey, let's pull over. That kid's got a basketball. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we don't really give police credit for is what they're going through in their day. Then, yeah, everybody would maybe start looking like criminals to you. Just the craziness, the worst part of people's lives is what you're getting involved in. You're not getting involved in the best part of their lives here. This is worst part of people's lives. So I can understand that, where you start driving around just being like, okay, everybody, it's their job. It's a tough job. I can only imagine, but let me know what y'all are thinking so far, and I'm just going to keep going.
I participated in these weapons training thing, not real weapons, relax, but like these weapons trainings where there's simulations, and some guy, like I'm in the building, the guy walks out, he's got a baby, I shoot the guy right in the head, and they're like, what was about the baby? I said, sorry, I didn't see the baby. You know, I was a bad police officer. But what I really did, I'm serious, I realized the job is really hard. It was the end of a 12-hour shift in Camden. And we get a call for a potential overdose in a row house. It's an abandoned building. We bust in. A person dies within 6 feet of me. And it shook me up a little bit. And so I looked at the guys I was with and I said, yo, how about beers on me? And they said, what do you mean beers are on you? I said, I don't know how to say it. Do you want me to speak in Greek? I mean, I don't know. It's beers are on me. We should leave here. Let the paramedics take over. We should go. And they said, we got to go back to work. And I said, but we just saw somebody die. And the police chief overheard me, and he was incredulous. He says, Roland, if I gave everybody a break every time someone died, no one would cover the shifts. And I was like, wow. It is a hard job. And so through these experiences, long story short, I collected a lot of data.
I kind of am appreciating the fact that he actually went on the street with the cops for the information. He didn't just Google it and jump it online and throw it out for an agenda or a narrative that would fit a better story, would fit more of the push on that story and the darkness on the cops, instead of what they're really here going through. Many times there's darkness, don't get me wrong, I know that there's some things that we need to change, without a doubt, but the fact that he's there in the middle of it all, and it's showing a light on the cops and kind of giving more of a sympathetic view to their side, because, man, I support the police. We need them. We need them in our community. God bless them and keep them safe. But the fact that he just says he went out there and this is what the police chief said, that we just got to keep going. It's hats off to the cops on this one. Thank you for your service. Let me know what y'all think.
It is a hard job. And so through these experiences, long story short, I collected a lot of data. And those experiences helped me understand what types of data to collect. We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal. We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And the key question, I alluded to it earlier in a bit of a joke, but the key question is not just this arbitrary, silly snapshots that some journalists, not named Barry, do a lot, which is black people are 13% of the population and they are 50% of the police shootings. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what that has to do with the question. Right? And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. Right? And so what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found the surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose.
Tell us about that. What was the reaction?
Oh, I mean, well, your former paper published published a report about it, and it was a 104-page dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay? It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. People lost their minds. I mean, it was like colleagues of mine were going, well,
Can you imagine putting that much time into a report, that much data, that much concentration for years and get that kind of a response within minutes? I mean, this is data that needs to be looked at objectively and assess it critically to format the fact, not an opinion. But when we understand that people pushing narratives and agendas, kind of sometimes they don't want the details. They just want the juicy part of the story that makes them feel either deprived or maybe, good. I don't know, but this would really upset me if I put in this much time and started getting jams like that. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? This is wrong. When from people who probably just got their information from the news. Yeah, they're there to stir you up and get a rise on an agenda. So this is a very interesting. This is mind-blowing. It's a groundbreaking research that this guy did, and I didn't even expect the results that he's telling me right now. Honestly, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect this. Anyway, let's keep going.
doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. People lost their minds. I mean, it was like colleagues of mine were going, well, I don't believe these results. He's using regressions. I'm like, well, what the hell else we been using? I mean, we've been using them for ever. That's what you use. And I had colleagues take me to the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens. So it was, I lived under police protection for about 30 or 40 days. I had a 7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for, because, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers, you don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was really, truly crazy.
Okay, well, I don't know what your idea on a patriot is. Patriot of America. Patriotism. But to me, this is it. This is patriotism. When you're going to do something that you know is going to cost you. You know it even could harm you and your family. But you still, to get the truth out there for the people, you still move forward in what you're called to do for this nation. I don't know. What do you think about that? I have to stop once in a while so I don't get copyright. You know that.
We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens. So it was I lived under police protection for about 30 or 40 days. I had a 7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for, because, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers, you don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was really, truly crazy. It was a really phenomenal experience.
There are a lot of people, many people, and this has been a realization for me over the past few years of my own life, who faced with that exact decision point would make the opposite choice. I think the majority of people actually would make the opposite choice. What can everyone here learn about what allowed you to make the opposite choice? To make the choice that would force you to suffer all of the consequences you would come to suffer. Some a direct result and some adjacent to it.
I don't covet what they covet. And I tell my undergraduates every year in the final lecture of my undergraduate classes, each one of them, the key to Harvard is get a great education without letting this place change you. It's really important. It can be corrupting. So not every incentive was pushing in that direction, because every day I have to look myself in the mirror and say, what are you here for? What did you leave behind? I did not grow up wanting to go to Harvard. I didn't. I really didn't. I wanted to do something. And I, like many others in here, I want to acknowledge that, have suffered a lot of losses in my life. My grandmother is no longer here. My father is dead. I don't know where my mother is. They're all gone. Every single cousin is gone. My favorite cousin, the day he got released out of prison after 25 years, someone walked up behind him and shot him directly in the head. So I have to make this journey worth it. I am here because I want to solve problems. I am here because I have seen so much talent in these neighborhoods, and I know they know bullshit when they see it. So I'm not going to lie to them. I wouldn't be able to show my face in these places if I told lies to them, like, oh, I heard this result from you. The thing about it is, if you do a result, what has happened with the actual police departments is that because they actually believe the results and they're willing to reform on the lower level uses of force because someone told the truth about the others. And, it's the importance of being thought of someone, of being an actual truth teller is so, so very important. Maybe not in the moment. But I didn't go to Harvard to have Chardonnay at 10:30 in the morning. I just don't want it. It's not my thing. And it's okay if it's someone else's thing. It's just not my thing. I went there to make a difference. Truly, I know that sounds naive to many of you. But as I tell my students, remember when you came to Harvard, you had lofty dreams of changing the world. It wasn't downside risk protection, right? Everybody I know.
I hear that a lot about Harvard, how people go to Harvard for the great education, but Harvard instills this wokeness inside of their students and sets them on a new course where they weren't really directed to go or wanting to go, didn't have in mind to go when they went there. But now, to fit in with the Harvard elites, they need to adapt and be mentally changed, the reality of who they are, to move forward in the direction of the far left liberal thinking. So I'm glad he brought that up. And it's nice to see that not everybody can be downloaded and robotized into a Harvard mentality, because it's dangerous. It could be dangerous. It could take away a lot of independent thinkers, you know? So we'll finish. It's almost over. We'll finish it up.
But as I tell my students, remember when you came to Harvard, you had lofty dreams of changing the world. It wasn't downside risk protection, right? Everybody I know who I've seen walk through those Ivy doors rocks the boat until they get in the boat, and then they say, steady now. I rocked the boat until I got in the boat, and I said, let's see how fast we can go. And I've fallen out the boat, got run over by the boat. It is what it is. But you gotta be for something, right? And so I mean, I actually don't understand those other people. I don't know what they're maximizing.
Let's talk about, yes.
So I will direct you and have a link below where you can go find the whole clip. But I do wanted to bring up one piece here that really struck me, because she asked him a question later on in the interview. I kind of condensed it for you in lieu of your time. Was it hard for you? And the response that he gave, because this is a very hard thing to do, especially for an African American, a black American, this is a hard gig to put out there when your whole life you've been taught otherwise. And George Floyd, who can forget George Floyd? Come on. We all saw it. It was there. So I get where this is very hard for somebody like him, but I do want to bring up this one other clip, and I think you'll appreciate it, and you'll get a little more intimate detail of who he is and what direction he's coming from. Check this out.
How'd you get through it? Many people would have gone through that experience and said, bye, I'm leaving Harvard, I'm going to go into private equity.
Yeah. I went back to Harvard so that everyone knows here and everywhere else that I could. Because there was a lot of obfuscation of facts and things like that. So that was important to me. People reached out to me at the time, a few, and said to me, oh my God, must be really, really hard. It wasn't. It was really, really annoying. Growing up without a mother is hard. And I'm never gonna forget the difference, right? Like, one of the promises I've made to myself is I will never, ever worry about the types of things that middle-class people worry about. if my drapes don't get here on, look, I got big customer service needs too, trust me, like, okay? But if my drapes don't get there on time from France because the barge gets held up, it's okay. It's okay, right? Because I remember what it was like to go to bed hungry. I vividly remember what it was like to go to bed so scared. I know what gunshots sound like at night. I remember having to get up, making the decision at night at 8 or 9 years old. Do you pee in the bed, or are you brave enough to walk to the bathroom? That's hard. Not people that I didn't like anyway, not wanting to talk to me anymore. And so I had a little bit, I'll admit it, of a chip on my shoulder during the time, right? And I know I'm not supposed to say this, but yes, there's a lot of people who I thought were, there was one hard part, which is I had a lot of people in the academy who I considered family because I didn't really have, mine wasn't there. And those people cut out. Still haven't talked to them. Some of them have come back and said, hey, you know, we can be friends again. And I said, no, we can't.
So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That was great. To me, that was great. I hope you all enjoyed this. Maybe we have made changes, and maybe things are getting better. Let's celebrate this together, and let's continue to improve on it. And I want to thank you all once again for watching. Love you all, praying for you all. You have a blessed day. Bye-bye.